Drop. Drop. The line is here, the mandibular angle is removed, and the buccal fat pad is removed. You said, it's not enough to grow up like this? What kind of cosmetic surgery? I heard it was to chase that, Shen Yanchu. Shen Yanchu? Isn't it the hero of the Road to Heartthrob? There were some inexplicable conversations in her ears. Ling Zhen felt that she was numb all over, and just about to move. Suddenly a cold iron tool touched her face like it was a knife. Anyone who is half dreaming and half awake will be frightened to death by someone holding a knife on his face. Ling Zhen was so agitated that he opened his eyes in an instant. The plastic surgeon hadn't cut the knife, and was caught off guard against the patient's piercing eyes, and he took a big step back in fright. Fuck! What's the matter? Ling Zhen sat up stiffly. The bed curtain of her fairy palace was gone, and the surrounding area was strange. And according to the information she quickly integrated just now, she, Ling Zhen, is undergoing plastic surgery for Shen Yanchu. The next thing came to mind. Naturally she would fail the plastic surgery and become ugly. Then she will get plastic surgery for other men to her mother-in-law's ears, angering the seriously ill elderly in bed. And her husband, who lost his only relative, would turn into a violent villain, and put her in a mental hospital in darkness, tortured to death. It's not that Ling Zhen can predict the future. Rather, this is the plot in a novel. A dog blood novel she just finished reading. Ling Zhen dignified a set of fairies, but he couldn't escape the fate of having to wear a book when he had the same name. As soon as she opened her eyes, she went down and became the female partner Ling Zhen in the book. She really wanted to cry. Because this female partner is really good to die. She has a husband, but she still can't let go of the protagonist Shen Yanchu, who has been in love with him for many years, but the protagonist and the whole protagonist group don't put her in the eyes. Therefore, she was jealous of the heroine Jian Wenyi, and stupidly thought that as long as she became Jian Wenyi's sweet look, she would be favored by Shen Yanchu. However, since this plastic surgery, her life has been miserable for thousands of miles and can no longer be restored. At this time, the doctors and nurses in the operating room looked at Ling Zhen tremblingly. Ling, Miss Ling, would you like to lie down first? Still lying down a ghost. Hoxian Ling really rushed through before the scalpel fell, otherwise she would repeat the mistake of the original owner of killing her mother-in-law, blackening her ex-husband, and being tortured to death. Fortunately, 1 has no plastic surgery, 2 has no divorce, his ex-husband is not an ex-husband, nor is he a black villain. Ling Zhen thinks it can be saved. Thinking of this, she didn't want to waste any more time, and strode out. Outside the operating room, Wen Xiaoning enthusiastically sent a photo to the WeChat group with Shen Yanchu and Jian Wenyi. It was a candid shot, and the protagonist was Ling Zhen in a hospital gown. Then, she shared her location: XXX Beauty Salon. As soon as the news was sent out, it immediately stirred up waves. Song Zi, fuck. Isn't this sister going for a plastic surgery for brother Yan? Ding Zi, 666 is really good. Wen Yi must be careful. Wen Xiaoning watched with satisfaction as the group became lively because of his topic, just about to reply, only to hear a bang behind him. The door of the operating room was suddenly opened. When she turned her head, she saw Ling Zhen walking out, and she frowned. What are you doing? Ling Zhen looked at the woman in front of him and guessed who she was. After the original owner decided to have plastic surgery, he originally wanted to choose a regular hospital for surgery, but it was Wen Xiaoning who jumped out and said that he has a friend who runs a beauty salon. The technology is reliable and he can give her a discount. Wen Xiaoning is Jian Wenyi's little sister. The original owner fawns on their group and transfers almost all of his savings to Wen Xiaoning with great trust, and she will then give it to the beauty salon, without knowing how many rebates have been swallowed. Not only that, Wen Xiaoning said to keep her secret, turned around and stabbed Ling Zhen's plastic surgery, and also publicized that Ling Zhen used Jian Wenyi as the model for plastic surgery, which caused the protagonist group to ridicule the original owner. Right now, this vicious cannon fodder was right in front of her, and Ling Zhen's black eyes stared at her. I'm out of order. Isn't it? Wen Xiaoning raised her eyebrows suddenly. After I have been busy for you these 2 days, I want to get such a big discount. If I didn't have me, the operation fee could be so cheap. Before she could finish her words, Ling Zhen suddenly followed her words and asked, thanks for your hard work, how much does the hospital promise to pay you? Wen Xiaoning was very emotional, was hit, and subconsciously replied, just 5 or 60,000. After speaking, she suddenly realized that she had been scammed, and her proud face just turned white. Did she know? But Wen Xiaoning immediately changed her mind. Ling Zhen had no evidence. Even if she knew it, she wouldn't dare to tear her face apart. At the beginning, they didn't want to see her, and had an affair with themselves, and no one would take her to play in the future. Wen Xiaoning felt a little peace in her heart and pretended to be affectionate to pull Ling Zhen's arm. Oh, stop making trouble, aren't you trying to become beautiful at the beginning? Why are you? So let's beg the dean and I will give it to you. You get an anesthesia and don't charge more in peacetime. Ling Zhen was already grateful for Dade, but this time she didn't respond, and instead slowly pulled out her arm. I said I didn't fix it, Ling Zhen said slowly, but clearly, so, transfer my money back and leave it as it is. Wen Xiaoning saw that he couldn't make sense, and immediately lowered his face. Dream you. You just don't want to get the money back. And I tell you, you never want to play with us anymore. Surprisingly, Ling Zhen didn't care about her threat, but added a condition, transfer it to me within 3 days. Wen Xiaoning was completely embarrassed into anger, and reached out to push her. I gave you a face, right? Unexpectedly, as soon as she moved, Ling Zhen's arm was flexibly grasped, and a low and calm voice pierced her ear. Otherwise, I will tell you about your secret crush on Shen Yanchu, secretly photographed Jian Wenyi, and hacked her on the internet. Your friends. This, Leon in the Wind. This is Wen Xiaoning's ID for the Black Post. Wen Xiaoning lost her voice for a moment, her pupils shrank suddenly, her face pale. How does she know? Ling Zhen grabbed her arm and pushed with a little bit of dexterity, and Wen Xiaoning sat down on the ground. But she forgot to scream, and there was only panic and disbelief on her face. Wen Xiaoning is also prestigious in front of the original owner. In fact, he is just a small cannon fodder in the protagonist's circle of friends. What he fears most is being kicked out. Once these things are exposed, she will definitely not get along. Ling Zhen had read the original book, knew what Wen Xiaoning had done secretly, and knew how to get her out, so she was very confident that she would definitely be able to get the money back. Wen Xiaoning sat on the ground embarrassedly, and squeezed out an ugly smile. Well, we have something to discuss. I have paid you the beauty salon for the money. Where can I have your money? Ling Zhen wouldn't believe her nonsense, and the corner of her lips twitched. That's your business. You. Wen Xiaoning was choked with heartache, but didn't dare to scold her a word. Ling Zhen glanced at her last, only 3 days. After speaking, he turned and left. Taking the phone and bag of the original owner, changing clothes, Ling Zhen went out and drove a car. Then she found that the biggest problem right now is she doesn't know where she lives. In response to the increasingly suspicious look of the driver's master, Ling Zhenfu was in his heart and remembered that there is a takeaway thing in the mortal world. She found the address accurate to the house number from the takeaway software, and finally breathed a sigh of relief. But the closer she gets to the destination, the more her heart is lifted. Because the person she is about to face is her biggest survival challenge in this world. Ling Zhen was impressed by the fate of self in the original book. Ling Zhen was locked in a snow-white room. Her face was ruined by plastic surgery, her eyes were like black holes, and her throat was hoarse. Her fingers dig out blood on the wall and dyed the pillow and bedding red. The people coming and going around turned a blind eye. Because she is a madman, and someone makes her a madman, she must be. This is the description of the original text. And this person is obviously her ex-husband, Wei Xi. Ling Zhen shuddered involuntarily, trying hard to think better. The marriage between the original owner and Wei Xi is completely useless and does not care about each other, so perhaps Wei Xi did not know that she was going out for plastic surgery, nor did she know that she was planning to divorce. As long as she goes out and strolls around the street, she usually returns home, maybe she will pass this villain's blackening point safely. In fact, Wei Xi, the villain, had a very unfortunate childhood. His biological father was glamorous and wealthy, but he abused his wife and children in private. The deformed growth environment has created Wei Xi's character that is paranoid, violent, and intolerant of betrayal, but at the same time, he is also lacking in love. It is precisely because of this that the death of the only mother who has loved him will stimulate Wei Xi to become black. As the villain's first dish after the blackening, if Ling Zhen wants to live well in this world, he must disarm the blackening bomb, influence him with love, and change him. At that time, leave him peacefully and safely. After thinking about this, Ling Zhen also stood in front of the door of the takeaway address. She clenched her fist, took a deep breath, carried her small bag, and raised a smile of love and peace. Well, that's it, as if nothing happened. What plastic surgery, what divorce, has nothing to do with her. Then she opened the door. In the spacious living room, she saw the man at a glance. It was a very delicate profile face. The dim sky light outside the window came in obliquely, and the man's mandibular angle was as precise as the dividing line of light and shadow. The complexion is cold and white, with thin lips, towering from the root of the mountain to the tip of the nose, forming a straight peak line. Under the deep eye sockets, the eyes are half closed, and the eyes are dull and unclear. His slender fingers were pinching a thin sheet of paper. That was originally a pleasing picture, but when Ling Zhen saw the piece of paper, there was a boom in his mind. She suddenly remembered. When the original owner left the house, with a heart chasing love and freedom, he left a detachment on the table in the living room. Marriage. Association. Negotiation. Book. Between the sparks and the fire, Ling Zhen seemed to see the miserable picture of himself being locked up and beaten up, and his desire to survive immediately ignited, and rushed towards the man. A few steps rushed to the table, snatched the divorce agreement, and hid it with his back. Because of this gesture, she met the eyes of the villain for the first time. Wei Xi folded her eyebrows and raised her eyes slowly. Those dark eyes seemed to be condensed into a thick dark cloud, and impatience and irritability were like faint lightning in the dark cloud. The woman in front of her lay on the table and shrank into a ball. Her hair is a little messy, Xing's eyes are wide open, and her whole person, shivering. His hands are just as empty, like a delicate sculpture, propped in the air. Ling Zhen's heart was beating so fast, she actually snatched something from the big villain. But why didn't he take his hand back? Isn't it about hitting someone? Ling Zhen's wry eyes blinked twice, observing Wei Xi's reaction, and then boldly, cautiously, handed his little hand to Wei Xi's empty hand. Wei Xi froze. You follow me. The girl held his hand, took a long and slow breath, and her cheeks puffed slightly. Don't be angry, take a deep breath. The author has something to say. Next door pre-collection of sweet articles. Welcome to Collect Update Early to Know. Rebellious Bai Yueguang only loves to learn. After being reborn only after Chu Yin died did he realize that he was living in a novel. When she was 17 years old, she was a bad school girl in number 1 middle school. She and the hero of the school could not be targeted at each other, but after death she became his white moonlight. Many years after her death, the school tyrant became the president of Gaoling, who still remembered her day and night. Do it again, Chu Yin shouldn't be the white moonlight who died prematurely. She ceased to be rebellious, and became the best behaved student that the male lead disliked the most. Put away your fists, pick up 5-3. In the past, the eldest sister was the first to airborne the city amidst booze. When he came back from rebirth, Chu Yin happened to be fighting with the school tyrant. Lu Tingyi was pressed against the wall by himself, the corners of his mouth were bleeding, and his sharp eyebrows contained hostility. Do you really think I dare not move you? In his previous life, Chu Yin raised his hand and slapped the boy's face arrogantly. This time, she raised her hand again, but he wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and asked softly, "Doesn't it hurt?" Lu Tingyi froze, confronted the girl's bright eyes, and then heard his heartbeat. Crazy as if to rot. You are bad and I love you if you behave, my life is yours. Her hands are very soft. It's warm, like no bones. This is their first physical contact since they got married. Wei Xi cast her eyes down and glanced at the hands they were shaking, stiffening for a moment. But then, he stretched out 2 fingers, pinched her wrist, and threw her hand aside. Ling Zhen rubbed his wrists and glanced at him secretly, as if he was not angry. Sure enough, the big villain before the blackening, although his temper was a little bit worse, he still has the hope of transforming into a good young man before he can get along with him. There was no emotion on Wei Xi's face. She stood up from the sofa and glanced at Ling Zhen. Do you want to get a divorce? Ling Zhen's legs softened and immediately said, I don't want to. I don't want kick for now. When Wei Xi stood up, she was nearly a head taller than her. The little wife was almost shrouded in the shadow cast by him, with her chin up, her eyes bright, and she looked very obedient. Wei Xi raised her eyebrows slightly, there seemed to be a slight irony in her expression, and then said nothing, bypassing Ling Zhen and walking towards the door. Ling Zhen glanced at the high-end skincare products in the hallway, and immediately guessed that it was the day when Wei Xi regularly visited her seriously ill mother. Wei Xi is paranoid and violent, and his feelings are very weak. But Ling Zhen knew that the only mother in the world who was kind to him was the only tenderness left in this man's heart. In the past, Wei Xi went to the hospital alone. The original owner will not accompany him, nor will he call her. But this time, the moment Wei Xi stepped out of the room, his clothes were suddenly pulled slightly, as light as a small animal. He turned halfway, lowered his eyes, and saw Ling Zhen lift up his small face. His voice was very soft and soft. I'll accompany you and go see mom together. No words all the way. Wei Xi didn't drive, and sat in the back seat side by side with her, far away in the middle. In the confined space, Wei Xi's cold breath was slightly oppressive, and Ling Zhen turned on the phone in order to divert her attention. There are many new messages on WeChat. Ling Zhen opened it and found that the top one was a chat group. She clicked in and looked at the group members, knowing that this was the group that the original owner had been asking for a long time before being kindly pulled into by Jian Wenyi. In order to integrate into the protagonist group, the original owner forwarded something that he found interesting every day, and responded to whoever said it, and spared no effort to participate in their conversations, boring others to death. The protagonist and his friends have never really accepted Ling Zhen, nor do they look down on the flattery of the original owner, so even if Ling Zhen is in this group, they can laugh unscrupulously. The latest few sentences are like this: Song Zhao, where is Xiaoning? How come the photos disappear after posting? Zhang Mei, that sister is still in operation. Ding Zi, it's rare to have such a funny thing, so why should I report it in real time? Did Ling Zhen pad his nose or cut his bones? Wen Xiaoning naturally did not appear. She is now frantically arguing with the beauty salon, trying to get the money back from the Black Heart Beauty Salon, but obviously, it's not that easy. Several people in the group waited for a while and did not respond, so they had to turn off their phones dumbly. After a while, the phone lights up again. There is a new message in the group. They opened with expectation. The new message has only one punctuation mark. Ling Zhen, everyone. After leaving the group, Ling Zhen let out a long sigh of relief. She didn't want to watch this group of protagonists Twitter, it was not her who liked the protagonist. Moreover, her most important task now is to appease the villain who is in the incubation period, and it is even more unlikely that she will be disconnected from the male protagonist. So at the moment she left the group, she felt a little relieved she was finally innocent. The car stopped outside the hospital. Ling Zhen obediently followed Wei Xi and walked all the way into the secluded ward deep in the hospital. Pushing open the door of the ward, when Ling Zhen's head came out from behind Wei Xi, she saw the eyes of the old man on the bed lit up for a moment, and she knew that she was right. Wei Xi's way of visiting was quite simple and rude, so he put things down and sat quietly in front of the bed without speaking. After a while, Wei's mother's attending doctor came over and asked Wei Xi to have a chat. Only Wei's mother and Ling Zhen were left in the ward. Mother-in-law and daughter-in-law have hardly been alone like this, because they are not like mother-in-law and daughter-in-law of ordinary families. The marriage of the original owner and Wei Xi was actually a bargain. Wei's mother had asked an expert to calculate Wei Xi's extreme personality. She might cause catastrophe in the future. But there will be a noble man in his life who can change his unfortunate fate. According to the master's calculation of the birth date and face, it was unfortunate that Ling Zhen became the noble person. Wei's mother originally took into account the wishes of the original owner, but the original owner's parents were all on their eldest daughter Ling Xian. As soon as they heard that they could earn a large amount of gift money from the second daughter, she happily sold her daughter apart from anything else. Now, the original owner didn't have the guts to resist. Sister Ling Xian has been gloating for misfortune, thinking that she was married to a rich man in his 40s and 50 years, but once happened to see Wei Xi himself, who was so handsome and the Wei family was still so rich. Ling Xian suddenly felt jealous, so after learning that Ling Zhen had plastic surgery, she sneaked up to Wei's mother to file a complaint, wanting to replace her. But she didn't know that the original owner had plastic surgery, which was equivalent to breaking the pattern of facial features. The only nobleman who can change Wei Xi is broken. According to the master, there is only one dead end. Wei's mother suffered a huge blow because of this. The fragile sickness could not bear the great compassion, and the person was gone. According to the plot of the original book, Wei's mother will die in a few days. Although Ling Zhen was absent from spiritual power, he could still observe a little breath. Now the old man's face is indeed entwined with a cloud of twilight. Mother Wei could not move her body, and she looked at Ling Zhen. She always felt that her own daughter-in-law's temperament seemed to have improved a lot. She no longer bowed her head and hunched back as before. When sitting still, she naturally straightened her back, revealing a slender swan neck, with a calm breath on her body. Ling Zhen sat on the chair obediently and asked her mother-in-law, "How are you doing?" There was a gentle smile in Wei's eyes, and her voice was faint, "Seeing you and Axi come together, I will be cured." Ling Zhen smiled and held the old man's dry hand. She came this time to convince Wei's mother that she plans to live a good life with Wei Xi. In the original book, the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law were too unfamiliar, which caused Ling Xian, an outsider, to easily get in. Wei Mu is a gentle old lady, she shouldn't suffer such a tragic ending of being off. What's more, Ling Zhen couldn't bear the consequences of Wei's mother's death. "You must take care of your body and live a long life," Ling Zhen said sincerely, "I will visit you often in the future." "Really, thank you," Mother Wei was very happy. "My old lady has nothing to look at. If you are not busy, you can accompany Axi more." Ling Zhen smiled and nodded to make her feel at ease. "Don't worry, he is my husband, and I will live with him well." Hearing her say this, a big rock in Wei's heart fell to the ground, her brows stretched out, a gleam of light appeared on the old face, and her eyes were slightly wet. "Good, good. Thank you so much, thank you so much." As her mood changed, the twilight on Wei's mother's face had obviously dissipated a lot. Ling Zhen breathed a sigh of relief. This blackening point should be considered past. At this moment, outside the ward, Wei Xi leaned against the pure white wall and bowed her head slightly. Broken hair pressed his eyebrows, his eyelashes covered his dark eyes, and the expression on his cold white face was a bit complicated. The laughter in the ward came from my ears, very clear in the quiet corridor. There has been no laughter in this ward for a long time. At night, the house is quiet. The day of turmoil was finally over. Ling Zhen took a good bath and looked at herself in the mirror seriously. Apricot eyes, a natural and beautiful silkworm with long eyelashes, a small nose tip, and full lips. These facial features are exactly the same as the fairy Ling Zhen, who was voted for 3 consecutive times as the most beautiful fairy in the fairy world, and indeed responded to the words of the plastic surgery doctor. What kind of cosmetic surgery should I have when I grow up like this? However, the original master's complexion is too bad, the skin condition is not as breakable as the fairy's blow, and the complexion is a bit dull. Moreover, the original owner's personality is inferior and sensitive, and his posture is not good looking, and he always gives people a sense of cringe. Ling Zhen raised his hand and touched the small bead hanging from the thin thread between his collarbone. She suddenly wore it here, and only this life spirit orb came with her. Ben Mingzhu is equivalent to her, seeing what she sees, listening to what she hears, so she deliberately defrauded Wen Xiaoning and recorded the evidence when she was in the hospital. In addition, Ling Zhu is warm and nourished in the immortal realm, and contains the aura of the immortal realm. Based on Ling Zhen's observation of this world, the aura of her bead almost caught up to half of the aura's stored value in the entire world. So in a short time, she is not worried, being raised by Ling Zhu, her skin color and appearance will quickly adjust back to the state of a fairy. After the villain's blackening incubation period, she can rest assured to find a way to return to the fairy world. Ling Zhen calmed down, dried her hair, and walked out of the bathroom wearing a white cotton nightdress. To the left of the bathroom is Wei Xi's large bedroom. To the right is a slightly smaller room with some original owner's things. Ling Zhen suddenly felt a little hesitant. How did the original owner and Wei Xi sleep? Although the relationship between the two is obviously cold, and it is very likely that they slept in separate rooms, what if they sleep on the big bed and have nothing to do with each other? Ling Zhen was a little bit embarrassed, for fear that he might step on the wrong foot. With a slender calf bare, she walked back and forth along the corridor a few times, and finally plunged into the room on the right. After 2 minutes, she walked out again and continued to wander back and forth hesitantly. She was wearing slippers, rubbing on the wooden floor, and finally swayed to the door of the large bedroom, with his forehead resting on the door panel. How about? Go in and say good night? Then go back to the small room to sleep. Ling Zhen made up his mind, raised his little hand and was about to knock on the door. Suddenly, with a click, the door opened from inside. Ling Zhen was still leaning against the door, falling forward along the way. Pucci hit a hard chest. The girl had just finished taking a shower, her wet hair was scented with warm flowers, and she came over with her warm body temperature. She bumped against his chest, a very soft ball, and the corners of the cotton nightdress rustled against the back of his hand. Wei Xi lowered her head, the process of frowning was clearly visible. Ling Zhen hurriedly propped himself up and took a step back like a big enemy. The description of how Wei Xi tortured her in the original text once again came to mind, and the hairs on Ling Zhen's back stood up. Wei Xi spoke with a slight hostility, "It's so noisy." The sound of her going back and forth in the corridor was so noisy. After saying that, as soon as Wei Xi raised her hand, the girl in front of her ran back to the opposite room with a wow. Wei Xi. He just wanted to rub his forehead. Women are really troublesome. Ling Zhen rushed back to the room in a panic, circling around the room to think of a solution. Wei Xi raised her hand just now, is she going to do it? How can I calm him down? Outside the room, Wei Xi frowned and was silent for a few seconds. After all, she raised her foot and walked to the door of her room. Before the voice fell, an audio was suddenly played in the room, super loud, loud and loud. Don't be angry. Don't be angry. Anger gives place to the devil. Wei Xi. The author has something to say. Wei Xi? Ling Zhen, I'm scared. Ling Zhen was woken up by a ringing phone in the morning. She circulated the "Don't Be Angry" song several times last night, and Wei Xi did not come to trouble her. It seemed very useful. But the downside is that she had a dream for the whole night, and someone kept dancing and shouting, "You are the one who suffers when you are angry," which made her not sleep well. Ling Zhen rubbed his eyes and turned on the phone to answer. Before putting it to my ears, a sharp sound came out. "Bad girl. Your sister said you ran for a plastic surgery. Wings are really hard. Do you have any money to call home?" Ling Zhen immediately took the phone away. Ling Xian was also in Shen Yanchu's chat group, and she must have inquired about this matter. Today the mother of the original owner came to Xingxi to ask the crime, and she expected it. Ling Zhen endured not hanging up the phone, but interrupted her chattering reproach, "Nothing. You don't have the guts." Ling Mu coldly snorted, "Now the beauty salon is deep, and you don't even know if your brain is pitted." This is true, the original owner is indeed smashed. Ling Zhen heard what she meant by her words, but she just didn't answer her words. Ling Mother babbled for a long time, and finally couldn't help but directly pointed out, "Your sister is preparing a new drama recently. What kind of citizen is it? As long as you can win a role, it will definitely be popular in the future. This drama Ling really knows that Xianwen, national level Big Eye, derivative radio dramas, comics, and mobile games are all very popular, and the Xiangxia idol drama produced is even more explosive. In the original book, this drama is an opportunity that everyone yearns for, and the male and female protagonists naturally also participated in the audition. Not only was Ling Xian jealous, the original owner desperately asked for an audition opportunity for 4 girls and 5 girls in order to get close to Shen Yanchu. So the director has to make arrangements in advance. Mother Ling felt that what she meant was very obvious. The second daughter secretly saved so much spare money, not to mention marrying a wealthy man again. It's not too much for her to be a mother for a sum of money. They are all from their own family, what's wrong with investing for my sister? Ling Zhen replied seriously after listening, "Come on." Mother Ling almost choked to death, did she mean that? Look, your money for plastic surgery is also idle. It's better to call mom. After all, Ling Mu pressed her temper to persuade her, at that time, the director will be arranged and Xian will be in front of the director. Mention you, maybe you can also play a small role. Ling Zhen was panicked by her quarrel, walked out of the room, went to the kitchen to pour a glass of water, and drank while saying, "Don't be so troublesome. It's not more straightforward for me to use this money to manage my own money." Ling's mother almost didn't get angry with her, can it be the same? Xian was born in an acting department. Although she is not a major college, she is still a subject. Ling Zhen turned out to be a choreographer, and she started acting purely to chase some male god. If he wants talent but has no talent, what can he do? Of course, I didn't say this, otherwise, let the fairy Ling Zhen, who is famous for her amazing dance of the immortal world, listen, and may teach her to be a human on the spot. Mother Ling always felt that her second daughter had become uncomfortable, so she simply scared her directly, "Now mom is just taking care of you borrowing the money. If you don't borrow it, don't go back to this house in the future." Ling Zhen was puzzled. Is there any inescapable value in a family that is eccentric and uses his daughter as a tool for making money? Mother Ling asked, "Are you going to borrow?" No, she drank a glass of water, wiped her mouth, and replied righteously, "I want to keep the food for my husband." After speaking, she hung up the phone, leaving Ling's mother on the other side of the phone, "So her chest hurts." As soon as he turned his head, he saw the man leaning against the kitchen door with his arms in his arms. The thin black shirt made his skin extremely white. A sneer appeared on Lang Jun's face, buy some groceries. Ling Zhen immediately persuaded the big villain, not to mention buying vegetables and cooking, neither of them seemed to have eaten at the same table. She rolled her black eyes a few times, twisted her fingers, and asked in a low voice, "Would you like to have breakfast together?" Wei Xi's gaze rested on her for a while, moved away, and put it back again. What to eat? High-end apartment in the city center. Shen Yanchu was flipping through the script, with the words Xianwen written on the cover. This Xiangxia theme big I can be said to be the most promising one in the industry this year. His agent helped him win the audition opportunity for the male number 1. If he can win, he can basically be in the first T-line niche. Ding dong, the doorbell rang. Shen Yanchu walked over and opened the door, smiling, Wen Yi. Jian Wenyi walked in carrying 2 plastic bags, her voice was gentle and clear, reading the script. Shen Yanchu took what she was holding, yes, prepare in advance. I heard that the cast of this play will hold a national selection. After all, the costumes are very picky. Jian Wenyi put her hand on the cooking table and looked at Shen Yanchu. But I think you can definitely do it. Shen Yanchu waved his hand, it also depends on my audition. But having said that, if the audition goes well, this role is basically the default. The so-called national selection is nothing but a disguised means of marketing and publicity, the ultimate goal is to attract heat. Unless there is a big hit, the result of the preliminary audition is basically a foregone conclusion. Jian Wenyi smiled a little shyly, I plan to try it too, if I can act with you, it would be great. Shen Yanchu, I believe you. In his mind, no one is more suitable to play a fairy than Jian Wenyi. Right, Jian Wenyi remembered something, Xiaoning has been weird these past few days and even borrowed some money from me. Shen Yanchu frowned, borrowing money. Jian Wenyi nodded, I asked her what she used for it, but didn't say anything. So I thought, I will set a table at Junyu in 2 days, and everyone will gather to take care of it. Xiaoning also agreed. Shen Yanchu smiled softly, just do what you said. Then, Jian Wenyi bit her lip and looked at him carefully, should I call Ling Zhen up too? Shen Yanchu wanted to frown subconsciously. The incident of Ling Zhen withdrawing from the group yesterday simply slapped everyone's face. I wonder if she was suddenly so abnormal because A's and the others said too much, Jian Wenyi said, I was the one who pulled her into the group. Just call it, Shen Yanchu helplessly, you are too kind. Jian Wenyi smiled shyly, opened Lingzhen's dialogue box, and sent a message, tomorrow at Junyu, I will have dinner with Yanchu and everyone, are you coming? The opposite hasn't returned for a long time. It took about 10 minutes for the new message to pop up. It just so happened that Jian Wenyi went to wash her hands, and Shen Yanchu picked it up and took a look. Ling Zhen, don't go. Shen Yanchu. When Jian Wenyi came back to see this news, she was also surprised. Before, Ling Zhen would do everything possible if no one asked her to be there. At this moment, the other side sent another message, when Xiaoning going? Jian Wenyi was dumbfounded, go. Ling Zhen, then I will go too. Shen Yanchu suddenly wanted to smash the phone. When replying to the news, Ling Zhen was sitting in jeopardy and had breakfast with Wei Xi. The reason why she agreed to go to the appointment was because she had forgotten the days, and tomorrow was the 3rd day, so she could just go to Wen Xiaoning to get the money back. When she has money, she can buy some small gifts for Wei Xi to increase her relationship. In case the situation changes in the future, the two have had a little friendship at any rate, and the boss will not be so unrelenting. When Wei Xi was eating, she was very quiet, she only glanced at Ling Zhen when she picked up the phone to reply to the message, and did not pay attention to Ling Zhen at other times. Ling Zhen returned to Jian Wenyi neatly, and tried to start a dialogue with Wei Xi based on the principle of communication is the first step in enhancing feelings. That, Ling Zhen was holding a cup of rikiao, half of his face behind the rim of the cup, did you sleep well last night? Just after speaking, the temperature plummeted by 3 degrees. The magical song echoed in Wei Xi's ear again, and Ling Zhen repeated it 10 times last night. Ling Zhen shrank her neck, not so good. Your song, Wei Xi's dark and narrow eyes showed a hint of irritability. Play it again, and I'll throw you out. Ling Zhen pursed her lips. Wei suddenly became fierce again. There was no response from the other side. Wei Xi raised her eyes and faced the panic in the girl seeing's eyes. Wei Xi frowned. Scared again? Is he so scary? If this was said, Ling Zhen might throw several pages of description in the book onto his face. More than terrible, you can do more. Can. Afraid. The dinner table became silent again. Wei Xi was a little irritable, and was about to get up when she was suddenly grabbed by someone. Ling Zhen's face was serious, and he held one of his hands in both hands, turned it over, and pressed his palm with his slender fingertips. Here, it's Logong Point. Ling Zhen pressed twice and carefully raised his eyes to look at him. Calm down, calm and refresh your mind. Can. Massage when you want to be angry. Don't get angry, okay? Her delicate fingertips rubbed his palm lines, a kind of inexplicable and secret intimacy. Wei Xi stiffened, but did not withdraw her hand. In fact, he didn't want to be angry. But somehow, I didn't say it in the end. Ling Zhen slept very well that night. Looking at herself in the mirror early the next morning, her eyes were bright and energetic, and her complexion was obviously a few degrees paler than a few days ago, and she looked very energetic. Under Ling Zu's warm nourishment, he was probably restored to 50% of Fairy Ling Zhen's appearance. Ling Zhen was in a good mood, and before going out in the evening, he chose clothes specially. The original body was originally a screenwriter, but in order to chase Shen Yanchu, he changed his career and became a small actor. All the money he had saved from working in the industry for several years went into the beauty salon. She doesn't buy a lot of clothes, most of them are the kind of clothes with many patterns and bright colors that attract people's attention. The taste is really not good. Ling Zhen was so happy, picking for a long time, finally found a simple white dress. The straight neckline reveals a pair of slender clavicles, pressed by a lustrous and translucent bead, and down are quite design lantern sleeves and a half-length skirt. The skirt is an ordinary skirt, but when worn on her, the swan neck, right-angled shoulders and the slender waistline maximize its beauty. It is graceful when walking around. Ling Zhen arrived at the place, walked into the magnificent Grand Hyatt Hotel, and found Jian Wenying's box under the guidance of the waiter. She arrived a little late, and before she opened the door, she heard the conversation in the box first. What? You said Ling Zhen took a photo of Wenyi to get a plastic surgery. Ling Zhen raised his eyebrows slightly. Then Wen Xianing's voice came out, isn't it? You say disgusting is not disgusting. Ling Zhen knocked this pen out, and her friend in the beauty salon also tore her face in order to ask for money. Her heart was full of resentment, so she naturally wanted to scold her. Fuck, fuck. This is disgusting. Does this woman have a psychological problem? Shen Yanchu didn't say a word, but his face was very ugly. Jian Wenyi was even more uncomfortable. She felt awkward when she thought of someone trying to be like herself. Wen Xiaoning watched their reaction, and there was a distorted joy in her heart. She would never let Ling Zhen take the money back happily. From now on, she will not want to mix in their circle of friends. So you must avoid Ling Zhen in the future. This woman has psychological problems. Before he finished speaking, the door of the box was suddenly pushed open. The crisp sound of high heels sounded, and a slender figure walked in from outside the door. The noise in the box stopped abruptly. Everyone watched her walk in step by step, and it took a long time for someone to say in surprise, Ling Zhen. The woman had a calm expression and a tall and straight posture. When she walked over with the hem of her skirt slightly, she felt a kind of fairy air. Is this the rustic, humble, and flattering Ling Zhen? I saw this woman gracefully walked in front of them, gracefully took away the wine glass in Song Zhao's hand, and then gracefully with a sound of wow, it splashed all over Wen Xianing's face. The fairy has been very hard to come down to the earth, and have to tolerate the slander behind this kind of villain, isn't it too wronged? Ling Zhen. What are you doing? Ling Zhen threw the wine glass back on the table and looked at Wen Xiaoning with a faint smile. Apologize and avoid it. Trouble you, pay the money quickly. The author has something to say, thanks to classmate Rabo for the grenade. What? Everyone was surprised. A girl next to Jian Wenyi called out, Wen Xiaoning, you owe Ling Zhen money? I heard it right. Wen Xiaoning shook off the water on his face, because Ling Zhen couldn't even make the fire come out with this sentence, and his complexion turned from white to bright red. As everyone knows, Ling Zhen is the one who posted their friends, he is earthy and poor and she owe Ling Zhen money. Wen Xiaoning felt that Shen Yanchu's gaze was looking right here. She couldn't take care of her embarrassment, so she opened her mouth and explained indiscriminately, she is blackmailing me. This is blackmail. As soon as these words came out, everyone looked at Ling Zhen's eyes again. Although they don't think Ling Zhen has the guts to blackmail, but, who knows? After all, it was Ling Zhen. The girl next to Jian Wenyi is named Zhang Mei, who is also a member of the female protagonist's best friend group. She doesn't like Ling Zhen to post Shen Yanchu, nor Wen Xianing's posturing, and she is very happy to watch them bite the dog. Zhang Mei said, what the is going on? Ling Zhen, if you really blackmail Wen Xiaoning, you can get the police to talk about it. As soon as she spoke, Wen Xiaoning scolded her in her heart. This woman was obviously afraid that the world would not be chaotic, and she was picking things up here. She quickly eased her face, I am not in a hurry, but I am not. Before Wen Xiaoning finished speaking, a clear voice came in, okay. Ling Zhen at the center of the incident was the calmest. She even smiled slightly, it just so happens that I have something to tell the police uncle. Wen Xiaoning looked at her expression, and somehow suddenly felt bad. Ling Zhen took out his mobile phone and turned on something. Then, a recording reverberated through the box clearly after I have been busy for you these 2 days, I want to get such a big discount. Without me, the operation fee can be so cheap. This is Wen Xianing's voice. Then a voice asked, thanks for your hard work, how much does the hospital promise to allocate you? This is Ling Zhen. Wen Xiaoning answered her, just 5 or 60,000. The recording stops. Ling Zhen met Wen Xianing's incredible expression, his eyes were bright and innocent, you have lied to me with the beauty salon to lie to me, do you want to go to the police station to talk about it? Everyone in the box was silent, their expressions were difficult to express, but this time the object was changed. Wen Xiaoning couldn't think of how Ling Zhen would record those few words at the time. She regrets now that her intestines are going to be green. If she hadn't been greedy for the tens of thousands of dollars, there would be no such thing. After Zhang Mei was shocked, she sneered, Xiaoning, you really belong to you. Ling Zhen is very low, and even Ling Zhen's money is cheated. Isn't it even lower than Ling Zhen's? Wen Xiaoning panicked in the eyes of everyone, she lied to me. No, it was made by her in post-production. At this time, Shen Yanchu, who had been silent for a long time, spoke, enough. Wen Xiaoning suddenly felt like a bird pinched by his throat, completely silent. Ling Zhen followed the voice and saw that he was a rather handsome man. An angular face has deep eyes because of the high brow bones. Shen Yanchu felt very complicated since just now. She looked at Ling Zhen who was slim in a white skirt and felt very strange. He always hated Ling Zhen forever sticking to his eyes like brown candy. But since Ling Zhen entered the door today, she didn't even look at it. Shen Yanchu stood up in his seat and walked to Ling Zhen, stop making trouble, go out and say. Everyone suddenly at this time, they had an aftertaste, isn't Ling Zhen deliberately behaving in front of Yanchu? Deliberately stabbed out the pitted thing, fortunately, it was sold out in front of Yanchu, which attracted his attention. Take a look, this trouble won the male to take the initiative to talk. It's really 6. Ling Zhen actually realized that he was Shen Yanchu only now. She didn't get a hint of excitement from what he said, and waved her little hand casually, "No, just stand here and talk." Shen Yanchu's expression changed, and everyone choked in his throat. Jian Wenyi has red eyes on one side, a little at a loss. She originally organized this meal to connect with feelings. Who knew that so many things would come out, but now she doesn't know how to end it. Shen Yanchu didn't want Jian Wenyi to blame herself. He frowned and glanced at Ling Zhen, then turned to Wen Xiaoning and said, "If you really owe her money, you can pay it now." When he said this, it was tantamount to indirectly admitting that he believed what Ling Zhen had just said. For Wen Xiaoning, this is tantamount to being sentenced by someone he likes himself. The male lead spoke, and the others echoed. This time, the person who had no face in the circle became herself. Wen Xiaoning could not bear it, gritted her teeth and transferred the account with her mobile phone, and then ran out crying. Ling Zhen looked down and took a breath of surprise. There were 300,000 transfers. A lot of money. Ling Zhen's mood improved immediately, and he didn't want to stay here anymore to waste time, smiled and waved his hand, "Excuse me, goodbye. The people in this room are very disheartened. A good party has created such a situation. The instigator has no burden and wants to leave after patting his butt." "Don't go," someone said in a weird voice, "isn't it always the last thing before?" None of their friends like Ling Zhen, and someone next to him immediately answered, "Looking at this posture, I'm afraid there is a new love? I don't know what new Gao Jie is. They have the courage not to give us face." "That's right," Ling Zhen almost walked to the door. Hearing these words, he stopped and turned around, "Everyone is fine and don't contact me in the future. I am married and very busy." "Everyone? Is it the one they think is married?" When Ling Zhen left the scene, the woman in the corner who had been bowing her head finally revealed her face. This face is 3 points similar to Ling Zhen, and it is Ling Zhen's sister Ling Xian. She finally caught up with a friend of Jian Wenyi's to get to know their wealthy children. Usually, she didn't dare to talk much in the group, let alone say that she was Ling Zhen's sister. Just kidding, Ling Zhen has been ridiculed by all kinds of things in this circle, who wants to have a relationship with her. But she didn't expect Ling Zhen to take the initiative to explode that she is married now. Doesn't she love Shen Yanchuo anymore? Or, she and Wei Xi's relationship has improved? Ling Xian thought of the man, that face more handsome than Shen Yanchu, and the low-key and luxurious clothes from head to toe. Her heart jumped quickly. Perhaps, she should be more proactive. Although Ling Zhen loves to read human novels when he is okay, he has also played secretly before and understands the human world quite well, but this is the first time that he holds human wealth and is as happy as a little bird. She was walking on the street, saw a department store, thought about it, and walked in. Ling Zhen has a good body and temperament, and is very prominent among the crowd, and is frequently stopped by people in shopping malls for introductions. Ling Zhen smiled and rejected some shopping guide sisters, and continued to look around. She actually wanted to buy a small gift for Wei Xi. After turning around, when he was about to change places to take a look, Ling Zhen's eyes suddenly fell in one place, and a flash of inspiration flashed in his mind. She knows what to give. On this day, Wei Xi went home very late. Open the door, the house is quiet, but not as dark as usual, leaving a warm yellow light in the living room. Since his marriage, his life has not changed at all. He is still alone, living in a big empty house. But now, it seems that the other person's sense of existence is getting heavier. Wei Xi lowered her eyelashes, pulled off her black tie with one hand, and suddenly had a meal when she passed the restaurant. There was dinner on the table, single serving, obviously reserved for him. He paused, then walked a few steps, and his slender fingers probed the temperature, which was still warm. A place that would leave a lamp for him to heat up a table of food was so warm that it almost made him feel unfamiliar. There is also a paper gift bag next to the dinner with a sticky note on the seal. On it is a beautiful traditional Chinese character, "You have to eat the rice while it is hot." This is a gift from me. I hope it will help you. Wei Xi unconsciously rubbed the few lines of handwriting with her fingertips, then took off the memo, opened the gift bag, and took out a real gift from it. It's not a watch, or a belt, or other things that he has been given too much. But, 2 books. One is called Being a Kind Person. Another is called Don't Let Your Temper Ruin You. Wei Xi squeezed the book with her fingers slightly hard. At this moment, the wooden door of the bedroom creaked, and Ling Zhen walked out of the room rubbing his eyes. She is also wearing a white cotton nightdress, with long black hair draped over her shoulders. Her figure is bumpy, and she feels pure and lustful. She seemed to have just woke up, not as afraid of him during the day, and yawned and asked, "Have you eaten dinner?" Wei Xi still held the unique gift in her hand. Then rest early, Ling Zhen said softly with a nasal voice, "Good night." Wei Xi did not speak. Ling Zhen didn't want his response either. She was very sleepy, and after speaking, she staggered back to the room. Wei Xi stood on the spot, the light falling from the top of his head, casting a shadow on his brow bone. Her deep eyes could not see clearly. After a long time, there seemed to be a chuckle in the room, followed by a good night. It is very low and light, dissipating in the air. Ling Zhen returned to the room, but couldn't sleep anymore. She simply leaned on the head of the bed, flipping through the script of The Question of Immortals that the original owner had placed beside her pillow. The plot related to The Question of the Immortal is an important node in the novel Road to the Fanatic. In the original book, the preparations of the male and female protagonists, the brilliance during shooting, and the burst of popularity after the broadcast are all described in detail. According to the current plot line, the film party of The Question of the Immortals will first hold a cocktail party in 2 months, inviting the media and management to the scene, as well as all those who participated in the audition, to create a lively gimmick. After that, it was a formal audition. However, the film Zianwen has a lot of extraneous affairs. The audition does not directly determine the candidates, but selects a few candidates, and uses their fixed makeup photos to vote on the whole network. In the original book, such a full exposure marketing method was a great success. But for the original owner, that cocktail party was an opening button for her bleak ending, and the second blackening point of the villain boss. At that time, Wei's mother was critically ill, and Wei Xi took her to a foreign country for treatment, but only Wei Xi came back. The original owner had not yet fully recovered from the plastic surgery, and didn't want to miss the opportunity of Zianwen, so he hurriedly went to the reception. After returning home, the blackened boss Wei Xi directly killed the reception. There he had a panoramic view of what the original owner did and knew who she was doing plastic surgery for, so he counted the mistake on Shen Yanchu. The black villain is unreasonable and suppresses Shen Yanchu very hard. It was time to sign the contract, but was suddenly changed. Then they couldn't receive all the announcements, ushering in a hard winter in his career. As for the culprit, the original owner, and Ling Xian, who was owed a whistleblower, in the next few months, one was tortured half mad and the other half maimed, unable to escape. Ling Zhen recalled the plot line in the book, and couldn't help but shudder. The blackened Wei Xi is actually like the author's tool man. The role of the male and female protagonist is to let the male protagonist fall into a trough, and the female protagonist will always accompany and encourage her, and finally promote the sublimation of the emotional line. The effect of such cannon fodder on her is to torture the best products to death and bring a sense of refreshment. Therefore, for the sake of the plot, at the time point in the original book, the villain Wei Xi still has the possibility of blackening. Just thinking about it, the phone on the bedside table rang abruptly. For some reason, Ling Zhen's heart jumped for no reason. She picked up the phone. It was a text message from an unknown person. The content is, "Are you coming next week?" Ling Zhen was a little confused. Did he send it wrong? She didn't reply, but another text message came after a while. "There are many employers coming at the reception, don't blame my sister for not telling you." If you don't know anything about it, I can go to your tutor to teach you. This piece of information is relatively large. First, this unsaved account belongs to Ling Xian, and the relationship between the original master and sisters is indeed not good. Second, the timeline is advanced. The author has something to say, Wei Xi, I like it in advance. Ling Zhen, you hold on to cook, the next watch is at night. Normal update is resumed. Thank you, dried fish is really delicious for the nutrient solution plus 13, landmine x1, grenade x1 bow. Originally, the cocktail party for the question of the immortal was at least 1 or 2 months later. Could it be that as she changed the plot, the original timeline was also advanced? Does it mean that the next possible blackening point is also advanced? After all, Wei Xi's personality hasn't changed, and he is still paranoid and violent. For the sake of the plot, he may still be blackened. Hold steady, you must hold steady. Ling Zhen bowed his head and glanced at the text message, first of all to prevent the best cannon fodder from angering Wei Xi. Ling Xian obviously has bad intentions towards Wei Xi. Although Ling Zhen has no jealousy as a wife, she does not want to be dragged down by Ling Xian. So the text message returned, don't bother. Ling Xian stayed up all night and waited for a long time before receiving these 4 words. She was dizzy with anger. She heard her mother say that Ling Zhen had stiffened her wings recently and dared to talk back. Originally, she didn't believe it. Could it be that the relationship with Wei Xi has changed for the better? Thinking about this, Ling Xian became even more anxious. After passing this village, there is no such shop. I am usually very busy and I don't have time to teach you. Ling Zhen remained motionless, it's okay. When Ling Xian received this text message, she dropped her phone with anger, and her Pala voice was extremely clear at night. Mother Ling's caring voice immediately sounded outside the room, Xian Xian? What's the matter? She ran into the girl's room, and Ling Xian took advantage of the situation and filed a complaint. I really wanted to teach her acting, but she actually refused. Treating me kindly as a donkey liver and lungs. Ling's mother quickly calmed her, Xian is not angry. She is crazy now, so you don't want to waste time on her, no matter how good you teach, it will be useless. The director won't want her. Ling Xian bit her lip unwillingly. How did she want to teach Ling Zhen? Mother Ling was still comforting her, don't get angry, go to bed early, there will be dancing lessons tomorrow morning. The reception next week is very important. For this reason, the family spent a lot of money to buy a set of high-end dresses for Ling Xian. When the money was transferred, Ling's mother couldn't help but scold Ling Zhen as a wolf. They have inquired in advance that there is a dance in the middle of the reception, which is a very precious opportunity to show. You know, there are many choreographies in the show The Question of Immortals. If you can show a little dance strength at the dance party, it will be helpful to audition later. Thinking of this, Ling Xian finally felt comfortable. Naturally, she would not tell Ling Zhen this news. After all, Ling Zhen had been physically uncoordinated since he was a child, and it was useless to tell it. At that time, she could only watch her dancing lightly. If you have a good rest, you can learn to dance well, and then use dance to amaze those investors. In the roar of Ling's mother, Ling Xian smiled and fell asleep as if she saw her fairy-like dancing posture and everyone's amazing eyes. King Z Investment. Through preliminary market research, including analysis of the original Xianwen, radio drama, and mobile game data analysis, the market acceptance of Xianwen is about. The screenwriter hired by the filming script has served as the lead writer of the 18-year-old hit drama XXX. The script is of high quality, and the main characters are basically not divorced from the original work. The large conference room has a formal and serious atmosphere. The speaker faced the man sitting on the main seat in the distance, and he didn't even dare to make a mistake. The man wore a black shirt and loosened a button at the neckline, making his complexion ice white, and the mole on his neck was very sexy. Slender fingers rested on the wooden tabletop and tapped gently. People are stunners, and there are countless people in the company who secretly think about it, but the cold aura is daunting. But senior officials like Zhao Yan know that although they have never held a wedding or brought anyone out, Wei is always married. Zhao Yan is very sympathetic to the sister-in-law who has never met what life is it like to marry this pervert. However, life is life, and their boss never makes mistakes at work. Several major decisions seem to be thrilling, but no one misses, and Qing Xi is firmly pushed to the throne of the industry. This time Zianwen is also very promising. Kingzi, as the most important investor, will account for 70% of the investment, which is a key project this quarter. Not surprisingly, they will launch another hot drama this winter. The meeting finally ended, and most people walked out of the meeting room in relief. Being pressured by the boss is a bit out of breath, and must go out slowly. Zhao Yan and Wei Xi have known each other for many years, and get along fairly easily. They stayed and said, "This is basically the propaganda strategy. The focus of the short term is next week's cocktail party. Will Mr. Wei go?" "Don't go." Wei Xi rubbed her eyebrows, and picked up the suit jacket. "Go now." "So anxious," Zhao Yan showed a gossip look, "go home and find my sister-in-law." "Roll." Wei Xi cursed, but did not deny it. It is indeed home. Although Ling Zhen straightforwardly rejected Ling Xian's false kindness, she planned to seriously prepare for Zianwen. The reason is simple: she will not stay at Wei Xi's house all the time, she always has her own job to settle down. The money on hand gave her some sense of security, but it was not enough. Moreover, after reading through the script of Zianwen, she felt that it suits her well. Not to mention anything else, just talk about the degree of adaptation to the ancient costumes of the Xian Xia, there is no more comfortable person in this world than her. Therefore, even though she was only interviewing for a small role like female fourth, Ling Zhen was still preparing very seriously. She flipped through the costume dramas of recent years, studied the eyes, tone and expression of those actresses, and chanted lines at home for several days, and Wei Xi asked a few more questions. After being bored at home for a few days, she finally remembered the matter and took an afternoon to go out. Counting the days, it has been a while since the last visit to Wei's mother. She bought a box of nutritional products and brought a bunch of elegant daffodils to the hospital. Ling Zhen made a coincidence: Wei Mu was in good spirits, and she felt even better when she saw her here. With lingering eyesight, we can see that although Wei's mother is still sick, her expression is much better than when she saw it last time, and she can see her spirit in her eyes. Mother Wei smiled and looked at her. "It's really more beautiful than last time. It's not her illusion. My daughter-in-law is really getting more beautiful every time. This time I saw her skin is fairer and more tender, her facial features are more hydrated than before, her apricot eyes and red lips are like pink jade, and her whole face glows indescribably. Light." Ling Zhen knew that this was the effect of Ling Zhen's accumulation. In fact, it has only recovered to about 70% of fairy Ling Zhen's, but there is already a kind of compelling beauty. She smiled, "You look at your spirits a lot better." Mother Wei held her hand, old and gentle, "Hello, I am fine." Ling Zhen used to be a junior when she was in the immortal realm, and the elders around her spoiled her, so she has been eccentric since she was a child. Now facing the well-meaning Mother Wei, Ling Zhen has recovered the feeling of being a child, and couldn't help feeling a little coquettish. "Wei Xi has a bad temper, and I sometimes fear him." "I know," Mother Wei squeezed her hand, "Axi is different from other children, she has a very biased personality, and I have wronged you with him." Ling Zhen heard this, and thought of the death of her mother-in-law in the original book, and Wei Xi, who had blackened his revenge because of this, suddenly felt a little sour. Mother Wei shook her hand, "To tell you a secret, Axi doesn't know it herself." Ling Zhen cooperated with a curious look, "What is it?" "Axi likes things made by other people's hands," Wei Mu said nostalgic. "No matter what you do, as long as you make them with your own hands, he will accept them. Ling Zhen opened his eyes wide. So, when Wei Xi returned home that same day, she heard a jingle in the kitchen. He frowned, walked to the kitchen, and saw Ling Zhen scrambling about a pot of milk. Seeing others, I was still a little panicked, and the slightly round apricot eyes flickered twice. Why are you back? Wei Xi leaned on the kitchen door, holding her arms. What are you doing? Ling Zhen held a pot of warm milk, raised his arms hard, and aimed at the small bowl of liquid on the chopping board. Ginger hits the milk. She thought bumping was easy, and she didn't realize that it was actually a difficult technical job until she got started. Wei Xi looked at the messy cooking table and found it troublesome. Is there no one nearby? But I am. Ling Zhen controlled the angle of the pot with difficulty. I made it for you. Wei Xi had a meal. She was pleased, out of some attempt he didn't know. Tests, gifts, dinner, all seemed to please. Wei Xi couldn't understand the feelings of many ordinary people, and he hated this kind of hypocritical behavior. But this was the first time he accepted such a clumsy flattery. It's clumsy, a bit real. Ling Zhen never felt that her hand was clumsy, but after bumping 3 bowls in a row, she really doubted her hand. Wait a little longer, I think I'll probably be soon. Before she finished speaking, Ling Zhen was stunned when her left wrist was pinched. Subsequently, the right hand was also raised. The man approached from behind, and a little distance away, the whole half circled her. Then, Wei Xi held her hand and steadily slammed the hot milk into the bowl of juice. Too stupid, he said. The author has something to say. Little fairy is very sweet, the big villain is very bad. Good night. Ling Zhen was a little surprised at first, and then moved. The first chapter of Being a Kind Person understands the beauty of being helpful. Ling Zhen thought moved. Wei Xi must have read the gifts she gave, and learned to help. Although this is a small step in life, it is a big step for the villain to break away from Blackening. There was actually a safe distance between Wei Xi and her. Ling Zhen tilted her head slightly, just in time to see the man's precise and perfect jaw angle, thick eyelashes, and tall nose. Although he frowned and looked impatient, the violent boss occasionally revealed so sporadic gentleness, which was quite lethal. However, Ling Zhen quickly recovered, and the milk hit, and the rich fragrance was floating around. Wei Xi released her hand and stepped aside again. Ling Zhen tried to put the spoon on the milk, and the firm and smooth jelly body really supported the spoon. She smiled happily, held up a bowl and handed it to Wei Xi. Try it. Although Wei Xi helped in the last step, she squeezed the juice, and she cooked the sugar milk. In order to control the temperature of the milk, she cooked several pots. The craftsmanship is a bit poor, but the sincerity is there. Wei Xi raised her eyes and looked at her, and she reached out and took it. The milk in the air is very mellow, with a hint of pungent ginger, which is a very unique taste. In my memory, the last time someone cooked something for him was before his mother fell ill. For 10 years, no one has done anything for him personally. The girl in front of him looked at him expectantly with curved eyes, and immediately asked after he took a sip, "How is it?" Wei Xi took a sip, raised her eyebrows, and drank a small bowl without changing her face. "It's okay." Ling Zhen had a sense of accomplishment after hearing this, and after Wei Xi left the kitchen, she cooked a bowl in the same way. After it was done, he took a happily tasted, hiss. What a ghost! It was so spicy that she was about to cry. Sure enough, the boss has a heavy taste. Days passed by, and seeing the closer and closer to the reception, Ling Zhen felt more uneasy. She wanted to do an experiment and observe Wei Xi's state of mind every day. She felt that the boss was mentally stable, and there seemed to be no signs of being pushed by the plot. Those who would cause him to blacken, in addition to the self who has changed the core, the best sister who covets the villain, and the male protagonist who must stand up with the villain, are currently not in contact with Wei Xi. Ling Zhen worked hard and cultivated feelings with the big guys, while silently praying that these people would never have contact with Wei Xi. But I didn't expect someone to come up soon. Hello? I'm outside your community, come out to pick me up. When Ling Zhen received Ling Xian's call, she really felt speechless for a while. She really underestimated the ability of the best sister to act, and the degree of dedication to her brother-in-law. Ling Xian knew their community, but didn't know which building it was or the house number. At the moment, she is gorgeously dressed and exquisitely dressed, standing at the gate of the community with 2 boxes of gifts. She also wore a pair of exaggerated sunglasses. Passers-by thought she was a star and cast their eyes on her. I took a box of bird's nest you like, and a gift for my brother-in-law. Ling Xian freed a hand, took off her sunglasses, enjoying the attention of the people around her. Hurry up, someone on the side of the road photographed me. Ling Zhen sighed helplessly, then you wait a moment. Yes, I don't understand people online, so I have to say it in person, right? She walked to the entrance with her slippers. Wei Xi just came out of the room, saw it, and asked, "Are you going out?" Well, Ling Zhen thought for a while, then folded back, ran to the kitchen and took the garbage bag with him. "I'll go downstairs and take out the garbage." Wei Xi glanced at her, "Can you help me?" "No need, no need." Ling Zhen quickly refused. "You don't have to go out there, you guys, I will take care of it." Ling Xian was bored waiting outside the complex, knocking down on the ground with the solace of high heels. After a while, she saw a familiar figure coming out of the corner from a distance. She was just a piece of ordinary loose home clothes with the Rai Lakuma logo printed on her body. Ling Xian sneered. How could her husband put his mind on her when she dressed like this at home every day? She seemed to be carrying something in her hand. Did she think she came to barter with her? It's really stupid. But as Ling Zhen slowly approached, Ling Xian gradually realized something was wrong. It was clear that Ling Zhen's skin was yellow and dark before, so who is this fair and smooth person in front of him? Not only has her skin improved, her complexion is also red from the inside out, her posture is light, and she looks better than before. I don't know how many times she looks better. Ling Xian felt sore, wondering if she was nourished. Ling Zhen walked to the gate of the community, pressed the button, and the carved iron door bounced outward. Ling Xian naturally wanted to follow up, but who knew Ling Zhen turned around and flexibly closed the iron gate back. Ling Xian. Ling Zhen looked calm and walked directly across from the community. Ling Xian had to carry things to follow her. Why are you going? Didn't you come to pick me up? Ling Zhen lifted the thing in her hand, and Ling Xian could see clearly that there was a big bag of garbage in her hand. Did she come down to take out the garbage? Ling Xian was so angry that she almost threw the gift to the ground, but considering that there was a tea set that she carefully picked for Wei Xi inside, she was not willing at all. She changed her mind and said proudly, "My agent has promised to introduce me investors at the reception." Ling Zhen didn't sign the company, so naturally there was no one to help take care of this. She always envied her. But at this time, Ling Zhen's expression was very calm, and he threw the garbage across the road, and then glanced at Ling Xian. "You have a good mix, and Wei Xi and I are also good, so don't worry about it in the future." Ling Xian was hit by this straight ball. She never thought that her stupid sister was so keen, and her face suddenly became red and white. Guizhou said to him, "I didn't bother too much. It's just that I'm the older sister. Care about." Ling Zhen politely and alienatedly thanked him, and began to walk back. She walked fast. Ling Xian was carrying her things, chasing her in a particularly embarrassing manner. "I have no other meaning, I just want to guide you. I don't mean anything else, I just don't need your guidance." Ling Zhen returned to the gate of the community, swiped his card to open the door, walked in, and closed it. Ling Xian was locked out again. She has been favored by her parents since she was a child. She grew up with a younger sister as a foil. She has an arrogant personality. Wherever she has suffered such grievances, she suddenly becomes furious. Okay. Ling Zhen, your wings are stiff, right? Don't come to the reception if you have the ability, just wait to be ashamed when you come. However, only the passers-by around listened to her shrew-like roar, and they all walked around the road. Ling Zhen had gone around the corner long ago and disappeared in the community. On the tall building in the distance, a slender black figure leaned against the floor-to-ceiling windows, witnessing everything condescendingly. It wasn't until Ling Zhen entered the building door that he retracted his gaze. Ling Xian did not even see Wei Xi's shadow when she ran this trip. Instead, she was furious to death. It took a long time for Ling Zhen to feel better when he came home and listened to his parents scolding. Who does Ling Zhen think he is? There is still the face to refuse her guidance. She took out the high-definition dress she loved from the closet, and recalled the movements taught by the teacher in the dance class in her mind, and her confidence swelled again. Look, she will use these to slap Ling Zhen's face fiercely. In a blink of an eye, it was the day of the reception. Ling Zhen was worried for a long time, until this day he found an opportunity to ask Wei Xi, well, are you going out tonight? Wei Xi answered casually, no. Oh. Ling Zhen turned around and let out a long sigh of relief quietly. It seems that the plot is still changing. Wei Xi does not plan to attend the reception this time, so this black spot can be skipped. In this way, she can go to the meeting a little easier. After all, she has been preparing for so long, and she doesn't want to miss a good opportunity. Ling Zhen was very happy, then I will prepare in advance. Both of them have eaten together recently. Ling Zhen never asked Wei Xi's job, but he went home on time every day, and gradually, eating together became a habit. Wei Xi raised her eyes and glanced at her, without asking what she was preparing. In the afternoon. Kingzi Investment. After arranging the work, Zhao Yan sneaked into the president's office and knocked on the glass door. Mr. Wei, are you really not going at night? Wei Xi was dealing with official duties and did not look up. Don't go. Most of the actors will go, after all, there will be a chance to meet with investors and producers. Zhao Yan walked to his desk, no interest at all. After Wei Xi finished writing the last stroke, he said coldly, no. All right, Zhao Yan also knew his character, and walked away with his coat. Then I will take Xiao Lu and go to see the beautiful woman. Wei Xi put down the folder, glanced at the time, packed his things and returned home. Go upstairs, open the door, and change your shoes. Walking into the house, there was silence all around. Wei Xi only understood what Ling Zhen meant by preparing in advance. There is no one in the house, and his dinner is set on the dining table in the living room. Ling Zhen thoughtfully left a note, I'm going to an event tonight, I won't have dinner with you. The meal is on the table, it's hot and cold. Wei Xi. After a while, Zhao Yan received a text message. Mr. Wei, send me the address of the reception. The author has something to say, chasing his wife JG. A very important gimmick of this cocktail party is its theme. In order to cater to the atmosphere of the question of immortals and to arouse the discussion of the whole people, the theme of the cocktail party was Xian. In the original book, in order to attract the attention of the capitalists and filmmakers, actors from all walks of life have racked their brains to ingeniously dress and make up. Among them, of course, the male and female protagonists are the most prominent. Jian Wenyi's pure white gauze skirt was widely acclaimed, while Shen Yancha was wearing a white shirt, with a crown-like face and full of fairy spirit, which fascinated the original owner. Ling Zhen still had an impression of the original owner's dress, because the author was obviously also cruel, and the description was very exaggerated. In order to bulge out the word Xian, she hung a pair of feathered wings behind her, and the audience flew around Shen Yancha like a big moth, her eyes very hot. Ling Zhen imagined the scene for a moment, and felt that he was too sorry for his face. She didn't intend to be eye-catching at the reception, not to mention that for her, this theme actually didn't need to be emphasized. After all, she is the fairy Bengzian. After being scolded by Wei Xi, Ling's mother no longer dared to call and harass, and the 300,000 yuan was still in Ling Zhen's hands. She is not stingy, she is very generous when shopping for clothes. The shopping guide lady in the mall watched Ling Zhen try on her dress, and was as happy as a flower. This young lady is immortal, has a good body, and is almost a human-shaped clothes rack. After standing in the store for a while, the passenger flow has increased. In the end, Ling Zhen picked a dark red dress. The style was not complicated, but many ingenious designs were hidden. The shallow V-neck reveals a snow-white swan neck, and the flowing draped sleeves reveal the stagnant forearms and slender wrists. The waistline is very thin, and it spreads downwards into a swaying dovetail skirt. The straight and slender calves were exposed. Ling Zhen was also very satisfied with the mirror self-portrait. She usually wears too casually at home, either a big t-shirt or pajamas. It has been a long time since she cleaned it up. Now dress up a little bit. The person in the mirror has bright eyes and white teeth, and is so immortal that he has about 80% of the appearance of fairy Ling Zhen. All the men in the shop looked straight, hesitating to come forward to strike up a conversation, but the little fairy paid the money neatly, and left quickly. When he got home, Ling Zhen put on a simple makeup, ordered Wei Xi dinner again, wrote a note, and then went out. She had no agent or little sister, and went to the hotel lobby alone. The waiter at the door was about to stop her, when she lowered her head and saw a little fairy in a red dress. She was so surprised that she stammered. Are you an actor?" Ling Zhen showed him the invitation text message he had received. The waiter blushed and asked her to come in. Ling Zhen went in and saw that everyone had started socializing, and there were quite a few familiar faces among them. She saw the buddies of Shen Yanchu, as well as Jian Wenyi and the little sisters. Ling Xian didn't know when she became acquainted with them, and she was standing in the circle of people in a high-profile dress. Ling Zhen didn't want to interact with them, so he walked to the side of the cooking area and took a glass of plum wine and drank slowly. Behind him is a little actor gossiping. "I heard that the big boss of the investor is not coming today. Ching Xi? It's normal not to come. Their president hardly participates in such activities. But although the big bosses are not coming, the producers will come. And Gu Wei and Shen Yanchu will both come. Ah, my God! It's mine too. I did 3 times on Shen Yanchu's drama. Ah, I look forward to it. Hey, I think Gu Wei is more handsome." The 2 little actors went gossiping and left. Ling Zhen sipped sweet wine while remembering who Gu Wei was. At this time, a young man strode past her. The man looked quite heroic and beautiful. He glanced at Ling Zhen in the corner, walked out a few steps, and glanced back again. Ling Zhen. He fixed his eyes for 3 seconds, then turned his head, walked over to Ling Zhen directly, and stretched out his hand. "Hello, little fairy." Ling Zhen is dumbfounded. "Who miss you?" The young man curled his lips and smiled. "I am Gu Wei." Ah, when the real person appeared in front of him, Ling Zhen suddenly recalled that Gu Wei was the actor who later became the male number 1 in Xianwen. The original Shen Yanchu was destroyed by the villain, and Gu Wei played the role. After the drama was broadcast, it became popular. Ling Zhen stretched out his hand and shook him. "Hello, I am Ling Zhen. Gu Wei looks very cheerful. You are also an actor to be auditioned? Haven't we seen it before? Which role are you going to try?" His tone was relaxed, but Ling Zhen was a little uncomfortable. She could feel that eyes from all directions were gathering quietly. Gu Wei is a well-known actor with masterpieces and high popularity. He was originally a friend that everyone wanted to make. His location is naturally noticed. This includes her sister. Ling Xuanzhe looked carefully for several times before daring to be sure that the beauty in the red dress standing next to Gu Wei was actually her own sister. Not only she found out, but Jian Wenyi and the others also found out. When did Ling Zhen hook up with Gu Wei? Also, Zhang Mei dragged the person next to him in disbelief. Didn't Ling Zhen not have plastic surgery? She didn't want to admit the last half sentence, but the people who listened to it also understood. How did it look so good without plastic surgery? Ling Xian gritted her teeth fiercely, pretending to be relaxed. This white foundation must be thick enough. Several people nodded in agreement, keeping their doubts in their hearts. Even if the face is thick, do you apply it all over the body? Ling Zhen clearly has his arms and legs as white as tiles. Jian Wenyi also had a complicated expression, but when she turned her head, she saw Shen Yanchu walking in from the door. Her face suddenly flushed. As soon as Shen Yan first appeared, he immediately became the focus of the audience. Not only does he look outstanding, but his clothes are also ingenious, and he is as gentle as the old sun. The crowd immediately surrounded him. Ling Xian was squeezed aside, her face was not very pretty. She couldn't help but wanted to stare at Ling Zhen again. When she turned around, she happened to see the man in black standing in the corner of the second floor of the hall. Ling Xian's eyes lit up, she glanced at Ling Zhen again, quietly left Shen Yanchu's group of people, and walked to the second floor. Zhao Yan didn't believe Wei Zui came when he received the text message. He didn't believe it until he personally received the big boss from the back door of the hotel. Why are you coming again suddenly? Zhao Yan was puzzled. Wei Xi's expression was faint. Come to eat. Zhao Yan. Okay, the boss is so casual, he's used to it. Bringing the boss to the VIP area on the second floor, Zhao Yan obeyed and planned to let the hotel cook a meal for Mr. Wei. At this moment, Wei Xi walked to the side of the handrail on the second floor and swept condescendingly, her eyes falling on a corner. Zhao Yan followed his line of sight, and saw the very famous Gu Wei, smiling and talking to a girl in a red skirt. He sucked. Actresses are too pretty nowadays, aren't they? Wei Xi looked over there, her eyelashes drooping to block the look in her black eyes. His little wife is a very friendly person. But it's not just kind to yourself. Zhao Yan was still praising the amazing little fairy in a red dress, but was suddenly interrupted by a whirring voice. Wei Xi. Ling Xian showed a look of surprise, clutching her chest. Is it really you? What a coincidence, I met here. Wei Xi retracted her gaze and glanced at her coldly. Zhao Yan grinned. Oh, it's rare for a girl to find us, Mr. Wei, who is still a beautiful woman. When Ling Xian heard him say Mr. Wei, she felt even more sad about Ling Zhen. Wei Xi actually has her own company. She smiled and pulled back her well-made hairstyle, and moved a few steps closer. I haven't seen Mr. Wei for a long time. Today, it happens to be fate, it's better. Wei Xi frowned, a trace of hostility in her eyes. Who are you? Ling Xian smiled stiffly. Wei Xi showed no mercy to her. I know you? Get out. When he was violent, Zhao Yan didn't dare to say more, and hurriedly stepped forward. This is the VIP area, I will take you down here with beautiful women. Ling Xian looked at his delicate but temperatureless face. Her face was red and white, her fingers twisted the expensive skirt, and finally she ran down the stairs. Zhao Yan breathed a sigh of relief, just about to say something. Soft music sounded in the hotel lobby. The prom began. Agents who have connections have brought their own artists to dredge the relationship, and male top-seed players like Shen Yanchu are shuttled between the various senior directors. Gu Wei was also taken away by the agent. Ling Zhen regained her freedom and walked into the crowd in the middle of the hall to watch people dance. The piano music at this moment is very suitable for ballroom dancing. Ling Zhen glanced around and saw that many actresses were eager to try, including her sister. All the big guys are here at the moment. If you can use the dance to attract anyone's attention, some people said during the audition later. Soon, Jian Wenyi walked to the middle of the dance floor with a white gauze skirt and danced with Shen Yanchu. The handsome and beautiful women are particularly seductive, and everyone around them is applauding. Ling Xian had long known that it would be a ball, and she had prepared a ballroom dance for a long time. But Jane Wenyi is more beautiful than her, she can't end when Jane Wenyi jumps. After finally waiting for the two of them to finish dancing, Ling Xian quickly stood on the center of the dance floor and performed a professional dance step. Unexpectedly, all of the soft piano music suddenly turned into a passionate waltz. Ling Xian was immediately silly. She is still standing in the center, under the crystal lamp, which is eye-catching, but she is stiff like a piece of wood. She even heard Jian Wenyi's little sisters laughing at her. Ling Xian's face was flushed. Soon, a young girl danced off the dance floor, and she wriggled a few times before she hurriedly exited the dance floor. Ling Zhen watched it interestingly. She also liked singing and dancing most when she was in the fairy world. It's just that their movements are too complicated and difficult, and they are a bit too grand compared to the easy and simple modern dance steps. Ling Xian lost her face and didn't know where she went. The atmosphere is very relaxed, the accompaniment has changed from waltz to the popular hip-hop style, and there are also young guys who dance hip-hop. Then I changed the piano music, and then, the genre changed, and it became a melodious Gukhan music. The high mountain stream fruit is high and low, and everyone is at a social level dance level. After all, there are no classical dance professionals. As soon as such an elegant ancient song came out, the dance floor suddenly became empty. Everyone was talking with the people next to them, waiting for the next suitable accompaniment. Ling Zhen shook her head lightly in accordance with the rhythm, and at this moment, her back was suddenly pushed hard. She was unprepared, this push was directly pushed to the middle of the dance floor. Unbeknownst to the audience, they thought she wanted to challenge such a difficult piece of music, and they applauded. Zhao Yan stood on the second floor and called Wei Xi when he saw this scene, "Mr. Wei. The little beauty is going to dance." Ling Xian stepped back quietly in the crowd, and no one around realized that she had pushed her. How could she be ashamed of herself? That way everyone will remember her foolishness. Ling Xian looked at Ling Zhen's slender figure with jealousy, and she felt a burst of joy in her heart. Since she was a child, Ling Zhen's limbs were out of coordination, let alone dancing, she even did ugly radio exercises. Just let Wei Xi and Shen Yanchul look at them. Even if her face looks better, she is still a clumsy ugly duckling, not a white swan. Amidst cheers and encouragement, Ling Zhen stood firmly in the middle of the dance floor. "Don't look back to know who did it." She sighed. How could she be afraid of dancing? Ling Zhen slowly bent over and took off his high heels. The author has something to say. Have you all been to Double 11? Seeking collection tat. Ling Zhen frowned. There are some people who will destroy other people's if they don't get it. Ling Xian has this kind of twisted psychology. Ling Zhen was not guilty, because nothing happened between the original owner and Shen Yanchu. Her only concern is that if Wei Xi knows about this matter, will his wife's tendency to betray will stimulate the villain? Within a second, Ling Zhen flashed many thoughts, opened his mouth and was about to speak, but there was a cold voice around him. "I said let you go." There was a haze over his cold white face, and the hostility in his voice was already quite heavy. Ling Zhen shuddered as she stood beside him, only then did she realize that Wei Xi was usually kind to her, and when the boss was really annoyed, it was almost like eating people. Ling Xian was also scared to recover some of her senses, and whispered, I just want to tell you that Ling Zhen likes Shen." She didn't finish her words, but was severely dragged and interrupted by a middle-aged man who arrived in a hurry. Ling Xian's agent was busy communicating with the seniors in the industry just now, and he didn't watch her for a while, and unexpectedly caused trouble for him. The agent just glanced from a distance, and suddenly his scalp was numb. 70 of the investment in Xianwen this time came from Qing Xi. Isn't the person who Ling Xian stopped the Qing Xi's President Wei? According to rumors, this gangster rarely has active activities, and his temper is so bad that he is difficult to touch, and he usually annoys the artists to post up. The agent bit the bullet and said with a smile, "Mr. Wei, our artist is not sensible, you forgive me. Wei Xi didn't show any face, her sullen eyes swept away, and the corners of her lips sneered, Xinghua Entertainment. The agent sneered, yes, yes. Wei Xi didn't say anything, and took Ling Zhen straight away. The agent quickly pulled Ling Xian to give way. When passing them, Wei Xi dropped a cold sentence, don't show up in front of me again. Ling Zhen didn't quite understand what he meant, and looked back at Ling Xian's agent, only to find that his face was already blue. After they left, Ling Xian stomped, Brother Wang, why don't you let me speak? The agent's suffocated breath came out, and all sprayed at her, say a fart. Get out and go home quickly, don't be embarrassed here. Ling Xian was stupid, I don't know the producer yet. You know what a fart. This drama has nothing to do with you. The mud can't help the wall. I'm in vain so much energy, get out of here. Knowing this long ago, he should recommend other obedient and sensible female artists. After working so long back and forth, and finally being punished by the management personally, it's bad luck. The way home was silent and calm. When Wei Xi drove, Ling Zhen was sitting in the co-pilot. She didn't know many cars, but Wei Xi's car seemed to be very expensive, and it was quite comfortable to sit on. Along the way, Ling Zhen secretly glanced at Wei Xi for several times. When she peeked at it for the third time, Wei Xi suddenly turned her face and stared at her silently with her dark eyes, what are you looking at? At the red light, the car stopped. Ling Zhen hurriedly looked away. After a few seconds, Wei Xi was still looking at her. Ling Zhen had to turn her black eyes back and blinked, I'm seeing if you are angry. Wei Xi raised her eyebrows lightly, what do you think? Ling Zhen pursed his lips. Seeing that he seemed to have a calm mind, he tried to sell the chicken soup he recently learned, look, people have hard teeth and soft tongues, but when they get old, their teeth are all lost, but their tongues are still now, what does this mean? In order to transform the black villain into a civilized and polite young man, Ling Zhen usually accumulates these chicken soups, and he has a set of principles. It means that softness can last long. Ling Zhen took it up by himself, with an extremely serious expression, with a soft and gentle heart, he is not irritable and irritable when things happen, so that he can live a long and happy life. The lines of Wei Xi's face from the brow bone to the nose peak were sharp. He stared at her for a while without blinking, then suddenly lifted his lips and smiled lightly. Ling Zhen blushed a little when he laughed, coughed, and asked softly, is there any reason? Wei Xi turned her face back, her lips twitched, and she turned the steering wheel, I am not soft. Ling Zhen, you seem to understand something wrong? Wei Xi asked, what do you want to eat? Ling Zhen thought for a while, just when he saw a large supermarket on the side of the road, he said, the refrigerator at home is empty. Let's go buy something and make it home. Wei Xi parked the car on the side of the road, and the two walked into the supermarket together. Soon after Ling Zhen came to the world, she fell in love with shopping in the supermarket. She felt that this incident was very lifelike. It was the first time two people went to the supermarket together. Wei Xi took over the cart and watched Ling Zhen choose. Ling Zhen likes to cook very much, but she is not good at cooking, so she always has to try several times each time, and the oil at home is used very quickly. It just so happens that the vegetable oil in the supermarket is on a discount, and 2 barrels of oil are cheaper to buy together. Ling Zhen thought it was a good deal, so he reached for it. But the 2 barrels of oil tied together are heavier than expected. Ling Zhen's spiritual power is weak now, and he hasn't even tried it a few times. Helpless, she turned around and looked at the leisurely man behind her, Wei Xi. Wei Xi looked down at her. Asking the Villainous to help, Ling Zhen felt a little unsure, will you get it for me? She was squatting now, still in the flowing red dress. It's like, the fairy dancing in the clouds falls into a more mundane life, reaching out to people for help. Wei Xi was inexplicably moved. Then silently reached out and lifted the 2 barrels of oil into the cart. Go ahead and arrive at the children's toy area. Ling Zhen looked at the shelves in the distance, not paying attention to the little boy who rushed out from the side. The crazy little boy was about to hit Ling Zhen, and Wei Xi suddenly stretched out her hand and pulled her aside. The little boy couldn't hold back the gate, and hit Wei Xi with Puchi. Ling Zhen regained his senses and stood firmly. Before he had time to thank him, he squeezed a cold sweat. Child, do you know who you hit? The little boy screamed in pain, rubbing his nose, looking up along a pair of stiff long legs, and suddenly met a pair of violent black eyes. The man's face was stinky, and his eyes were so terrifying, as if he was going to be beaten in the next second. The little boy stayed for a few seconds and said Wow was scared to cry. Wei Xi. As soon as Ling Zhen saw this posture, he squatted down in front of the little boy and touched his head. It's okay, it's okay. Don't cry, brother didn't mean to blame you. The little boy looked at the fairy sister in front of him, blinked his eyes, and stopped crying a little. Wei Xi frowned as she coaxed the child. Ling Zhen wiped the boy's tears, and said gently, don't chase and fight next time, okay? You have to apologize when you bump into someone, you know. The little boy nodded faintly with tears, and bowed to Wei Xi, I'm sorry, brother. Ling Zhen looked at him so good, smiled and straightened up, looking at Wei Xi with encouragement in his eyes. Wei Xi was silent for a few seconds, and finally compromised, it doesn't matter. Ling Zhen was very pleased at once, seeing his eyes crooked with a smile. The little boy's mother quickly rushed over and took the little boy away while apologizing. The little boy seemed a little bit reluctant. After walking a little distance, he turned his head and looked at Wei Xi, brother, sister is your wife. Wei Xi looked at him coolly, with an inexplicable provocation in her eyes, what? My sister is so good looking, the little boy sniffed and sighed, brother, don't hit my sister. Wei Xi. Ling Zhen was shocked. Unexpectedly, this child has such a discerning eye at a young age. Sister, I am also afraid that my brother will beat me. When they left, Ling Zhen turned his head, then let's go home. Brother. Her tone was the same as before, still coaxing people, calling intimacy. Wei Xi raised her eyebrows imperceptibly, and took the lead in pushing the cart to the cash register. Okay. The blackening point of the reception was passed through without danger. Ling Zhen was very relieved. But she didn't know that the video of dancing that night was filmed by many people, and it was posted on the internet the next day, causing a small sensation. Netizens sighed, the fairy went down. Fairies dance? So I inquired about her Weibo everywhere. By the time Ling Zhen knew, her Weibo account, which hadn't been registered for a long time, had already gained 10,000 followers. Looking at the various rainbow farts of netizens, Ling Zhen felt quite interesting at first. That night, Jinding KTV in the city center. The luxurious box is very lively, some people are drinking and guessing, some are crying and howling. The only person Gu was sitting on the bar in the corner, with his mobile phone sideways, not knowing what he was looking at. There is no reason for the big star to be cold, and soon a friend came over and said, why is brother Wei hiding here? Why don't you have a song? Gu Wei's eyes did not leave the screen, look at the fairy. When my friend saw it, it turned out to be a dancing video of a girl, and it took just over a minute. He watched it with him, and was a little surprised, fuck, this is too immortal, do you know? Yes. Gu Wei nodded, exited the video quite memorably, and gave a thumbs up. A friend came to be interested, let's introduce it later. Wait for me first. The words were not finished, and suddenly there was no voice. The friend was puzzled, what's the matter? Then what? Gu Wei's expression slowly became subtle, I seem to, forgot to cut the trumpet. Friend. That night, when Gu Wei liked the video Airborne Hot Search, Ling really drank chicken soup at home. The author has something to say, Wei Xi, what is your relationship? Ling Zhen, I'm wrong about the relationship.